Drinking alcohol, smoking, and drug use are harmful to health.
In the quiet suburbs of Willow Creek, a small town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests in upstate New York, Emily and Jack Harlan had finally achieved their dream. After years of renting cramped apartments in the bustling city, they purchased their first home, a charming 2-story Victorian house on Elm Street. It was the kind of place that whispered promises of stability and family life. The house had stood empty for over a year, its previous owners having moved away under mysterious circumstances that the real estate agent glossed over with vague mentions of personal reasons. But Emily and Jack were too excited to dig deeper. At 32 and 35 respectively, they were a young couple eager to start a family. Emily, a graphic designer who worked from home, and Jack, a software engineer at a local tech firm, saw the house as the perfect blank canvas. The move-in day was idyllic. Sunlight streamed through the lace-curtained windows, illuminating the hardwood floors and the ornate fireplace in the living room. The nursery upstairs, with its bay window overlooking the backyard garden, was Emily's favorite room. She spent weeks decorating it. Soft pastel walls, a white crib with matching changing table, and a mobile of tiny stars dangling above. They didn't have a child yet. Emily had been trying to conceive for months, but the room was ready, a symbol of hope. "One day soon," Jack would say, kissing her forehead, "this house will be filled with laughter." The first few weeks were blissfully uneventful. They unpacked boxes, hosted a small housewarming party for friends, and settled into a routine. Jack left early for work, Emily sipped coffee at her desk in the sunroom, and evenings were spent cooking dinners and watching the sunset from the porch. But on a crisp autumn evening in late October, everything changed. It was around 10 p.m. Jack had just returned from a late meeting, and they were winding down in the living room, a bottle of wine half empty on the coffee table. The house was silent except for the distant hum of crickets outside. Suddenly, a faint sound pierced the quiet, a soft, plaintive cry. It was the unmistakable wail of a baby. Emily froze, her glass midway to her lips. "Did you hear that?" Jack paused the movie they were watching. "Hear what?" "There it is again." Emily set her glass down, her heart quickening. The cry came from upstairs, echoing faintly through the vents. It was weak at first, like a newborn's mewl, but it grew insistent, filling the air with urgency. Jack stood up, glancing at the ceiling. Probably the neighbors, or maybe a cat got in the yard. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his voice. Their neighbors were elderly and childless, and the yard was fenced. They listened in silence. The crying persisted, now clearer, coming directly from the nursery. Emily's face paled. "Jack, that's not outside. It's in the house." Without another word, Jack grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, though the power was on, and they ascended the stairs together. The wooden steps creaked under their weight, amplifying the eerie atmosphere. At the top, the hallway was dim, lit only by a nightlight plugged into the wall. The crying was louder now, emanating from behind the closed nursery door. Emily reached for the knob, but Jack gently pushed her hand aside. "Let me go first." He opened the door slowly, the hinges groaning in protest. The room was empty. The crib stood pristine, blankets neatly tucked. No baby, no sign of life. But the crying continued, as if the walls themselves were weeping. It seemed to bounce around the room, impossible to pinpoint. Emily rushed to the crib, peering underneath and checking the closet. Nothing. "Turn on the light," she whispered. Jack flicked the switch. Harsh fluorescent light flooded the space, revealing every corner. Still, the cry echoed, muffled yet piercing. "Maybe it's in the walls," Jack suggested, pressing his ear against the plaster. The sound was closer there, vibrating through the drywall like a trapped echo. They searched the entire upstairs, bathroom, guest room, attic access. The crying followed them, fading and intensifying, always centered on the nursery. By midnight, exhaustion set in. They called the police, who arrived promptly. 2 officers, a burly man named Rodriguez and his younger partner Thompson, combed the house. They found no intruders, no open windows, no explanations. "Could be pipes settling," Rodriguez offered, though his tone lacked conviction. "Old houses make funny noises." But Emily knew better. As the officers left, the crying stopped abruptly, leaving an oppressive silence. She lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if the house was playing tricks on her mind. The next morning, sunlight banished the shadows, and life resumed its rhythm. Jack dismissed the incident as a fluke, perhaps a dream, or acoustic illusion from the wind. Emily tried to agree, but unease lingered. She spent the day researching the house's history online, typing "Elm Street, Willow Creek haunted" into search engines. Most results were mundane, property records showing the house built in 1892 by a local mill owner named Elias Thorne. But one forum post caught her eye, an anonymous user claiming the previous owners fled after hearing things at night. No details, just a warning to beware the cradle. Shaking it off, Emily focused on work. Yet, as evening fell, the crying returned. This time, it started softly in the nursery, building to a crescendo that rattled the baby monitor they'd installed out of habit. They hadn't plugged it in fully, but the static crackled with the sound. Jack, frustrated, tore apart the room. He checked the vents, the floorboards, even drilled a small hole in the wall to inspect the insulation. Nothing. The crying seemed to emanate from the very foundation, a spectral lament that twisted their nerves. That night, sleep evaded them. Around 2 a.m., the cry morphed. It wasn't just wailing. There were words, faint and garbled, like a child's babble mixed with whispers. "Mama, help. Cold." Emily bolted upright. "Jack, did you hear that?" He was already awake, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's the wind, or animals." But it wasn't. They played the recording from the baby monitor app on their phone. The audio was clear. The cry, the whispers. Terrified, they barricaded the nursery door with furniture and slept downstairs on the couch. The following days blurred into a nightmare. The crying became a nightly ritual, always starting in the nursery and spreading through the house. Friends suggested carbon monoxide poisoning, so they installed detectors, negative. A plumber checked the pipes, clear. An exterminator found no pests. Emily's research deepened. She discovered Elias Thorne had lost his infant daughter, Clara, to illness in 1895. The child died in the nursery, in a cradle by the window. Thorne, grief-stricken, abandoned the house shortly after. Legends whispered of a restless spirit, a baby who cried for her mother, luring the unwary. Jack scoffed at the supernatural. "It's a house settling. We're stressed." But Emily saw the toll it took on him. Dark circles under his eyes, irritability at work. She started sleeping with earplugs, but the sound penetrated her dreams. One evening, desperate, Emily confided in her neighbor, Mrs. Hargrove. Ms. Hargrove, an elderly widow who'd lived on the street for decades, over tea, Ms. Hargrove's eyes widened. "The crying? Oh dear, that house has a history," Clara Thorne. Poor thing never found peace. They say she cries for someone to hold her, but it's a trick. Draws you in, makes you see things. Emily laughed nervously. See things? Like what? Mrs. Hargrove leaned closer. Shadows, figures in the window. And if you go to her, you don't come back the same. A week later, the disturbances escalated. The crying now included footsteps, tiny pattering steps across the nursery floor. Emily, unable to work, spent hours staring at the baby monitor feed. The screen showed nothing but the empty crib, yet the audio screamed. One stormy night, thunder rumbling like distant artillery, Jack was away on a business trip. Emily was alone, curled on the couch with a blanket, when the power flickered. The crying began immediately, louder than ever, accompanied by a scratching at the front door. Heart pounding, she approached the window. Outside, in the pouring rain, a figure huddled on the porch. It was a woman, disheveled, soaked to the bone, banging weakly on the door. Help, please, let me in. Emily hesitated. The woman looked harmless, mid-30s, wild hair, clutching a sodden bag. Against her better judgment, she unlocked the door. The woman stumbled inside, dripping water on the floor. Thank you, she gasped. I'm Sarah. My car broke down. The storm, I saw your light. Emily offered a towel and hot tea. As Sarah warmed up, she glanced around. Nice place, cozy, but something felt off. Sarah's eyes darted to the stairs, her expression shifting to one of recognition. You hear it too, don't you? The baby. Emily froze. What? Sarah smiled faintly. The crying. It's why I came here. Not the car. That was a lie. I needed to get inside. Panic surged. Emily backed away. Who are you? Get out. Sarah's demeanor changed. Her eyes gleamed with fanaticism. I'm here to help. The spirit called me. Clara needs a vessel. Emily lunged for the phone, but Sarah was faster, tackling her to the ground. They struggled, the woman stronger than she appeared. You don't understand. The baby chooses. Your nursery. It's perfect. She wants your womb. Sarah was a trespasser, not just of the house, but of sanity. She'd been following online forums about haunted houses, drawn to Elm Street by the legends. Obsessed, she believed she could birth Clara's spirit by force-feeding Emily a ritualistic potion from her bag, a foul-smelling herbal concoction laced with hallucinogens. Emily fought back, grabbing a fireplace poker. She struck Sarah's arm, drawing blood. The woman howled, but the crying upstairs drowned it out, as if cheering. In the chaos, Emily dialed 911. Police arrived within minutes, subduing Sarah. She ranted about the empty cradle and giving life to the dead. Turns out, Sarah had a history: mental health issues, prior trespassing charges at abandoned properties. Convinced she was a medium. As Sarah was led away in handcuffs, she laughed maniacally. You'll hear her forever now. The cradle is empty no more. The police report classified it as a break-in attempt by a disturbed individual. Jack returned the next day, horrified. They installed security cameras, reinforced locks, and hired a paranormal investigator named Dr. Lena Voss, recommended by Mrs. Hargrove. Dr. Voss, a no-nonsense academic with a background in psychology and folklore, arrived with equipment: EMF meters, thermal cameras, and audio recorders. Often these hauntings are amplified by real events, she explained. That woman's intrusion might have triggered something psychological. They conducted a vigil that night. The crying started on cue. Voss's devices spiked, electromagnetic fields fluctuating wildly in the nursery. Thermal imaging showed cold spots shaped like a small form in the crib. "It's not just sound," Voss said. "There's energy here, tied to trauma." She delved into history. Clara Thorne hadn't just died of illness. Records showed Elias suspected foul play. A trespasser, a drifter, had been seen lurking. The man broke in one night, smothered the baby in her cradle to silence her cries, and fled. Elias, mad with grief, burned the intruder's belongings in the yard, cursing the house. "The spirit isn't Clara," Voss theorized. "It's the echo of that violation. Trespassers awaken it. Uninvited presences stir the unrest." Emily shuddered. Sarah had been the catalyst, but now the house felt violated, the crying a perpetual alarm. Over the next weeks, the disturbances worsened. Objects moved. The mobile spun on its own. Blankets rumpled as if a child had slept there. Emily began seeing shadows, a tiny figure in the corner of her eye, vanishing when she turned. Jack, once skeptical, now slept with a loaded shotgun by the bed. One night, the cameras captured it, a blurry shape entering the nursery through the wall, like a mist coalescing into form. It hovered over the crib, wailing. But it wasn't a baby. It was distorted, elongated limbs, a face twisted in rage. The trespasser's ghost, or Clara's vengeful echo? Emily's pregnancy test came back positive the day after the recording, joy mixed with terror. "Our baby," she whispered to Jack. "But in this house?" They decided to confront it. With Voss's guidance, they performed a cleansing ritual, sage smudging, prayers, and a symbolic reburial of Clara's memory, using a locket Voss found in the attic containing a lock of infant hair. During the ritual, the crying peaked, windows rattling, lights flickering. A cold wind swept through, and Emily felt hands, tiny, icy on her belly. Visions flashed. The drifter's face, sneering as he trespassed. Clara's final breath. Sarah's mad eyes. Then, silence. The house stilled, but peace was fleeting. Months later, as Emily's due date approached, the crying returned. Fainter, but insistent. Doctors confirmed all was well with the pregnancy, yet Emily dreamed of an empty cradle, a shadow rocking it. On the night of the birth, in the hospital, Jack held her hand. The baby arrived healthy, a girl they named Clara, in defiance. Back home, the nursery felt different. No cries. Yet one evening, as Emily nursed the infant, a soft knock echoed from the basement door. They never went down there, sealed off since the move. Curiosity won. Jack pried it open, revealing dusty stairs leading to a forgotten room. Inside, amid cobwebs and relics, stood an antique cradle, Thorne's original. Empty but rocking gently, and from the shadows, a whisper. "Thank you for filling it." What Emily and Jack didn't know was that Sarah's trespass wasn't random. Released on bail, she vanished, but her influence lingered. Police later uncovered her journal. She'd been watching the house for months, believing the empty cradle spirit chose Emily as a vessel. Sarah had trespassed before, in other haunted sites, leaving offerings that amplified unrest. But the real horror was historical. Digging deeper, Voss revealed the drifter wasn't just a killer. He was part of a cult that targeted grieving families, stealing infants for rituals. Clara was the first in Willow Creek. The house absorbed the energy, replaying the trauma through cries to warn or lure new occupants. Emily's visions during the ritual showed more. The drifter's descendants still lived nearby, one being Mrs. Hargrove's late husband, who sold them the house cheaply to offload the curse. Confronting Mrs. Hargrove, she confessed, "He made me promise. The crying protects the land, keeps trespassers out. But once you're in, it binds you." The Harlans moved out soon after, selling to a developer who demolished the house. But the cradle? They burned it. Yet, in their new home, faint cries sometimes echo from the baby monitor. The empty cradle follows, a reminder that some trespasses scar the soul forever. Sarah was recaptured months later, trespassing in an orphanage, whispering to empty cribs. She claimed the baby chose her next, and in Willow Creek, the lot where the house stood remains empty, save for a single weathered cradle in the weeds, rocking in the wind.